Okay, I believe this is where we left off during the class, and if you recall, what we were trying to do is to move the matrix multiplication routine into a subroutine. And so I copied and pasted this. There is a line right here called multiply that was put there just to remind me of where the multiplication was supposed to be placed. And so we basically copied and pasted down here. One of the issues that you might want to look at is to name the variables so that they make sense to a person who comes along later. For example, the term Q probably makes absolutely no sense to anybody. And so what I want to do is to rename that so you know what it is. So let's do this. Let's see. M, I'm going to do P, Q, M, and all of them. M is located right here, you can see, and that would be the number of rows in the first matrix. So what I'm going to do is use the refactor command on M to refactor that and rename it basically. So I'm going to do that here. Okay, I was testing how this would work, so I'll show you how to do that with the next variable. The next variable would be Q, and that is equal, or P, let's do P. P is this variable right here, and it is the common dimension. It'll be the second dimension in the first matrix, which is the number of columns, and it's the number of rows in the second one. So what you do here is you select that. I'm having difficulty with my pen. Okay, so P, and we're going to rename it. The other editor they call it refactoring, but okay, rename, and we're going to call this the column or COL of first and row of second. That's what that is. Then if you hit preview, it'll show you where it's going to make the change. So it'll make the change in these two places, one here and one here. Right. So in this one and in this one. Okay, so you say, yep, go for it. So it's made that change. The next one would be Q. Q is right here. So it looks to me like that is the number of, let's see, D. D is, yeah, so that's the number of columns of the second guy. So we'll come in here, hit rename, or right click, and rename it. And this will be calls of second. And hit preview. And those are where I want it. I say apply. So there we go. And I think the first and second kind of makes sense. What I don't like about this is how it has columns of the second, columns, it kind of in a weird order. What might be easier for somebody to read, maybe, and this is your own decision, but I'd like the rows in the first matrix, and then the columns of the first, and then the columns of the second. So I'm just going to reorder them. So we'll do that. In fact, I just pause it so you don't have to watch. The reason that you can change the order of these things is the only thing that really matters is the order in which you line them up. So when we call this routine, what we want to do is just make sure we put them in the same order that they are here. Okay, so the next thing that I want to do is put in the routine that calls it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this thing, if I can get my mouse to work properly. So just copy, and I'm going to stick it in up here where I had that place marker right here. And we'll paste it in, just do a little housekeeping. And this is how we're going to call it. So all you have to do is say the name of the function, matmul. You don't need these ints anymore. But this is the rows in the first matrix, which is, I think that was P, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see, matrices. Yeah, P and Q, the number of rows and columns. So P and Q are the rows and columns of the first one. So this would be P, comma, and rows in the first matrix, and then this would be Q, and columns of the second matrix would be, let's see, second matrix. I think I may have gotten those backwards. So let's see, the first matrix, okay. M and N are the rows and columns. Yeah, okay, made a mistake. So this would be M and N, M and N, and then it should be P and Q. So this would be Q. And then this is the first matrix, so it's called first. And second. All right, and now let's see what happens when you try to compile this. All right, so we'll say no, and let's take a look at the errors. Let's see if I can scroll this up so we can get a better view of it. Okay, so this is on line 44, which is the matmul, and incompatible parameter. What's happening is when I say first with the bracket 1010, what that is doing is it's taking the very last element of the first matrix, and the same thing with the second. It's taking the very last element of the second matrix and passing them down. Well, if you think about it, one of the elements in the matrix is simply an integer. And so what it's complaining about is it's saying, now wait a minute, you're sending me, M, N, Q, first and second. You're sending me 5 integers. And that's not what you told me is supposed to be lining up, because down here it's supposed to be a total matrix, right? So, down here first is a matrix that's size 10 by 10, and up here you're sending me the one value. Does that make sense? If you look at the way first was defined, for example, right up here, int first 10, 10. What you're telling it is first is an integer, and there are 10 and 100 elements, right? And that's what you're saying down here when you receive it. You're saying, what is first? It's an int, but there are 100 of them in this section, right? So that's really a declaration. Whereas up here, you're sending the values down. And so I have a problem with this. And so what I want to do is I want to modify this and say, I want to send the whole matrix down there, right? If you notice that, once I've done that, it says, oh, yeah. Now that's fine, see? So, right? So hopefully you recognize the difference, because when you're calling it, it's not a declaration for the memory. The memory is already there. You're simply telling it what to send down there. And so now we should be good to go. Oh, okay, let's see what other errors I've got here. Matmul identifier not found. Okay, I believe I know what this is, but so let's see. Format string requires an argument of type int but variable. Okay, I'm going to pause this till I figure it out. Okay, well that one was dumb. I'm not quite sure how that happened, but you can see on line 24. Maybe you can see the problem. I'm reading numbers in, and because of the %d, right here, if I can highlight it right there, I'm saying there's going to be 2 numbers. And where are you supposed to store it? Well, the scanf is supposed to receive the address that the person lives, where N is living. And here the M needs to be the address of where M is. And so I think in the last class I had done that to try to demonstrate it. So that takes care of that scan issue. And I think I know what the other one is, but we'll compile it and I'll show you that the second error is gone. But the first error is the matmul. I'm going to pause it just to make sure I know what I'm talking about. Okay. Basically what was happening with that error message is when it gets to matmul, it is telling me that it really doesn't know what matmul is, so it really can't tell if I'm sending the right values to it or not. And in order to get around that, or what it's telling me I need to do, is I need to give it what's called a prototype. So for example, I put it up at the top. The prototypes, you'll see in a minute, prototypes can go anywhere before the first time you try to use it. So in this particular case, I put the prototype up here at the very top, and basically all I did was I copied the very first line of the matmul subroutine, with the exception. Let me scroll over to the end. With the exception that instead of it having brackets, you put a semicolon behind it. And what this does is it tells the compiler that I plan to use a subroutine which is going to be called matmul, and this void out in front tells it what is going to be returned to the calling person. In this case, it's a void. It's not going to return any numbers. The matmul is going to expect 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, well actually 3 integers, and then these other 2 are integer arrays or vectors. So now the compiler knows that when I say matmul, this is what it's expecting. And what it'll now do is when I hit the matmul, it will be able to check and say, okay, the first 3 things are supposed to be integers. So it will check, is M an integer? Is N an integer? Is Q an integer? Is first a matrix, or an array with 100 values? Is second something with 100 values? And if it is, then no problem. And so if you compile it, rebuild. Building means compile and link and hook them all together. So it succeeds. So the error is gone. You should always use prototypes. In some compilers, prototypes are only warnings. They just warn you if you don't use them. But you should, and I try to use them at all the time. The main reason is because you need to be able to allow the compiler to check and make sure that the type of variable you're sending to the subroutine is the correct type. So what you can do, for example, is I'm going to put an error in here. I'm going to put a float. I'm going to call float x. And then in matmul, I'm going to try to send x as the first parameter. Okay, so I'm going to send x down. And now let's try to build it and see what it tells us. We should get a warning or an error message. Yeah. So basically what's happening is it says now, right here on this guy, argument conversion. It's on line 46. So that's on the matmul. And what it's saying is that it's, that I'm converting from a float to an int. Why? Well, because the main program knows that x is a float, but yet it's being sent down to a subroutine. The subroutine says, I'm expecting an int right there. And the float and the ints are different sizes, and so it may not line up properly. And it's letting me know that I have an issue here. The k being an unreferenced variable is just telling me that nobody's using k, which is no big deal. We can get rid of it. And also, I guess it's warning me here that it's possible that I'm using x without setting it equal to something, which could be an error as well. So that's kind of an explanation as to why you want to try and use prototypes, because if you accidentally make a mistake sending the wrong kind of variable to the subroutine, the compiler will check it for you and let you know that you've messed it up. So I'm going to pause it and put it back the way it was.